Good morning. Enjoy yourselves today.
The country's completely overrun.
They're forcing Jews out of their homes. They're taking us all to the ghetto.
Thousands of people are dying. The littlest of children.
We have room. We could hide them. Bring as many as you can. What a terrible time you must have had. German troops come every morning. You can't make a sound.
Mama?
Have you been keeping secrets from me?
No one knows how hard it is. You can never tell who your enemies are or who to trust. Maybe that's why I love animals so much. You look in their eyes, and you know exactly what's in their hearts.
What have you been up to in your little zoo?
Hello, Jessica, Niki.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Congratulations, both of you, on this film. Quite a moment in history that is captured here, and I want to get into the sort of making of it and also how it sort of is historically relevant to today as well. But first, Jessica, 2007 was when the book was published. Were you aware of it at that time? Did it come into your life sometime right after its publication?
I'm very sad to say that I didn't know of the story until I got the script.
Really?
It's an international bestseller, but I hadn't heard of Antonina Żabińska. And I was so blown away by her extraordinary act of kindness when I read the script, and I was like, why isn't this everywhere? So yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that, no, I didn't know.
So if you look close at the credits, you see that you actually have a executive producer credit on the film. How much more were you involved with the production of this film versus something that you had just done as an actress?
The films that are labors of love to me, the films that are very important for me to do whatever I can to get them made, I'll come on as an executive producer or as a producer. The deal was made when we made my acting deal, and I just wanted to do everything I could to throw all of my 5'4" weight behind the film and help to get it made.
Niki, how did you get involved with this? I mean, you're very prolific. If I look at your career from Whale Rider to...
Thank you, because it doesn't feel like that. Actually, it feels like I only work once every 5 years. So, cheers.
Well, I guess the diversity of projects is just very surprising. You've done a sports film, you've done an American film about North Country, about iron miners, I think. Mm-hmm. How did this happen?
Well, the same unremarkable reason as Jessica's. I'm afraid I was sent the script. And, I'm embarrassed to say that I never knew of Antonina Żabińska and the role she played in history. But part of me is excited too by that, because I think a lot of times, I think maybe the reason for this is that she's a woman, and women's stories were not considered to be remarkable or relevant, but they are, and it makes me think, well, how many other stories are out there to be told, to be discovered, and to be shared with audiences?
So to talk about her for a minute, I mean, she was in 1939, I think. She was working and was sort of co-owning, I guess, the Warsaw Zoo. What happened in the next 6 months or next year, if you can explain, that sort of put this story into motion?
World War II happened. And when the Germans occupied Warsaw and Poland, a lot of the zoo was destroyed in the bombing. And a lot, the Jews were segregated and put into the Warsaw Ghetto. And at that point, Antonina and her husband, Johan, decided to smuggle people out of the ghetto and hide them in their zoo. It was an incredible act of bravery. They sacrificed not only their own safety, but the safety of their children's. Mm-hmm. And they saved the lives of hundreds of people in doing that.
Hundreds?
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Over 300.
People who were smuggled in through a truck, basically, that was carrying feed, I think. Or
yeah, in the trash bins, and then through the Labor Bureau.
Yeah. Now, there's historically been lots of other cases of zoos in wartime, it's just tremendously sad and devastating because it becomes a safety issue for the city. In developing the project and knowing that you were going to have to get this right, even though you had historical evidence, were you looking at other places in the world as well where animals have unfortunately as well been victims of war?
Well, that's more of a question for Niki when putting it together.
My strong filmmaker instinct is to be as authentic as possible. Mm-hmm. And if we could have shot in Warsaw, we would have. But Warsaw was destroyed first by the Germans and then by the Russians. So it is a very modern city now. And we had to replicate Warsaw in the 30s, which was known as the Paris of the North. It was very, very cosmopolitan. So the way we expressed that was to build our own zoo, a Belle Epoque zoo in the middle of Prague in the Czech Republic. And that's a unique thrill. It was a very big set. It had to be very strongly constructed because we put real animals into it.
And it was a functioning zoo, essentially? I mean...
we didn't charge people to come and see it. No.
But Jessica, when you first walked on it, did it feel... I mean, it must have been remarkable, first of all, that this was built, but did it feel like you were going into a place, an animal sanctuary of sorts?
Yes and no. I mean, it was remarkable because it was built. The elephant enclosure is actually built from the plans of Lutz Heck. And in real life, in the Warsaw Zoo, he created that. He designed it. And so Niki and the incredible team replicated that in Prague. However, this is a film also about 1939, and zoos then are different than zoos today. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it was incredible, but the cages that the animals are in, they didn't live in these cages while we were filming the movie. It was just for the brief moments that their scenes were being shot, and then they would go back to their more spacious environment.
Do you have a sort of a number of how many animals were on the set? I mean, because there's so many different species in this film.
I haven't added them up. I keep meaning to. There's lots. You need to work species by species, mm-hmm. Very carefully, very calmly. Our philosophy was never to require of the animals to do any kind of tricks for camera. In most cases, the animal work is shot like documentary wildlife photography. So the cameras are back, and we shot a lot of film in order to get the little piece that we wanted. Then there are scenes like the scene in the beginning of the movie with the elephants, which I shot as if I'm working with two incredible actors. I mean, one is a woman and one is an elephant.
In the opening sequence of the film, we see you walk into a bedroom, and I think your character's son is laying on the bed, along with 2 or maybe 3 lion cubs. Were they? Is that historic? I mean, is that really how it was in her home?
Yeah, Antonina saw all living creatures as gifts, and she lived alongside animals. They went in and out of her house. They slept in her bed. Her children grew up with animals, brothers and sisters. So yes, it's very true to who Antonina was.
I'm curious to talk about animals, actually. I mean, I know that's a cause that you feel strongly about. I think PETA and also rescue. How much, when you first got this script, not having known the story, how much was that a pull for you to say yes, to do it? The fact that it was really just this wonderful story about animals.
It was a big pull for me to do the film. I think we can learn a lot from animals. The idea that you're not to possess or force or own, in a way, drive another human being, another living creature. Antonina, she says in the film, you look in their eyes and you see exactly what's in their hearts. Animals are so authentic, and they don't lie to you. They don't manipulate. They are these pure, beautiful beings. And I think we have a lot to learn from them, as opposed to what the general consensus in society is like, oh, we're so intelligent and we're so superior. I don't think that's the case. So yes, I was really excited to work alongside animals.
What was the most challenging species to work alongside?
You know, the thing was that no one was challenging because we didn't try to force them to do anything they didn't want to do. Niki would create a space that they were free to be who they were. So if they were hungry, they ate. If they were sleepy, they slept. We didn't wake them up. The first scene in the that you just mentioned in the bedroom, as written, my character was supposed to feed them, but they didn't want to eat, so Niki put them on the bed.
Oh, yeah,
really? They're babies, and they just had their bottle, and they wanted to sleep. So, no, it's a great thing actually, because the image as written was nice, very Madonna-like, and she would have been beautiful, and it would have been a gorgeous way to open the movie. But I think what we organically ended up with, for the camera to be behind Antonina, behind Jessica, and for her to be watching over 3 sleeping babies, 1 human and 2 lion, was more special and certainly a more enigmatic way to introduce us to Antonina, who was much better with animals than with people. Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good, a curious thing. I mean, in that opening scene, it takes a minute for us to realize that those are lion cubs. They could be dogs or even I don't know, gerbil. I don't know what they could
cats.
be. Big. I'm trying to think of. But then, was it tempting? I mean, did you have to sort of work out how not to give all the animals human emotions, which is a common thing in movies?
I didn't have to work that out. I figured that one out when I made a movie called Whale Rider.
Yes.
There was no part of me that wanted to attribute any kind of human emotion to a whale. A whale is unknowable. Unless you're another whale. So I don't anthropomorphize them.
Yes, very good.
Ever. I'm so intrigued and compelled by them as they are, without our interference. And the brilliant thing about my situation is Jessica Chastain, who is genuinely an animal whisperer and has some spooky otherworldly connection with them. And so I was able to just keep back and allow these 2 species to communicate in the way that I believe Antonina did. You know, she and Jessica share a very, very rare gift.
What's different about that in terms of shooting it, though? I mean, you must do, as you were saying, a lot of run a lot of film just to capture those couple of moments. But when it's you with an elephant or some other animal, I mean, are there different challenges there? Is it lots of waiting around, lots of sort of just looking for the moment?
No, there's a lot of just playing.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of just seeing what they want to do and playing with them. People say, actors never work with animals and babies.
Yeah.
But I'm the opposite. That's all I want to work with, animals and babies. Because what they do is they force you to show up without expectation, which is kind of an amazing way to live anyway, just to be open to what life has to offer you. And you show up and you see what he or she feels like, and then you kind of go along with it. And you try to, as an actress, make sense of a scene still. Like in the scene of the elephant birth, the first take, it's me with this puppet and Lily the elephant's behind me. And she wasn't very interested in what I was doing with the puppet because it's not real. It's, And then, so I thought, okay, how can I get her to play more? And I had spent a lot of time with her before we were ever in front of a camera, just to get to know each other. And I knew she liked apples. So I gave her some apples, and I was like, look, and I started to hide them all around the set. So all of a sudden, then she became really interested in me. And her trunk, I was covered with elephant mucus, and her trunk is all over trying to find the little hidden spots underneath the puppet of where the apples were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's the magic of movie making. You watch the scene and you go, oh, it's very dramatic.
Exactly.
But actually,
It's playful.
it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any survivors of the Warsaw Zoo, and were you able to meet with them and talk to them?
Yes, there are. I haven't met with them yet. I understand. So there are some little children in the basement in this movie, guests of Antonina's, and a couple of them are still alive. They were the Kenningswein family. But the person we spent the most time with, certainly Jessica did, was Teresa Żabiński, who is Antonina's daughter, who's also in the movie. Cocktail party scene at the beginning of the movie. You serve her some snacks, right? Yeah.
What was it like just sort of talking with her and I guess not really doing research necessarily, but just sort of getting some sort of her essence?
It was so helpful to meet with Teresa and talk about Antonina, her mother, because yes, the book it's based on Antonina's own words. It's based on her journals. So you learn so much of who the woman is. But to talk to Teresa, I got to find out how other people perceived Antonina. She told me that her whole life she never saw her mother wear pants, which for me was crazy. How do you take care of animals in a dress? I asked her if your mother was an animal, what kind of animal would she be? And she said a cat. And in fact, the father nicknamed her Punya, which means little cat. She told me she loved makeup and nail polish, but she rarely wore it because the father didn't like it. Jan didn't like it. So all these little kind of clues I got from Teresa, it really helped me in developing the character, especially the femininity of Antonina.
Yeah. Were there any, some of the great stories from this era are on the theme of either hiding or non-Jews who rescued and helped to hide Jewish, Diary of Anne Frank and Schindler's List. Were there touchstones for either of the two of you? This is a very unique story to its time and to its location. But were you sort of thinking back to stories that have moved you before that sort of relate some ways to this one?
For me, it was a lot of finding a new way of telling the story, or shining the light on a group that we haven't really learned about. There's something about this that is very feminine. It's women in war. It's also woman in 1939 when her husband leaves, and then she steps forward, steps kind of out of his shadow and takes responsibility. And then when they meet at the end, they're equals. Mm-hmm. That. The idea that what does it mean to be in a cage? The Warsaw Ghetto is a cage. And Niki so brilliantly shot a scene of someone taking a selfie outside the ghetto at one point while people are starving on the inside. So there was a new way of telling the story. And also celebrating a hero that used compassion and love as their weapon against hate. A lot of the time in the film industry, a hero is someone who battles and fights, and there's violence involved in that. And that's absolutely, that story should be told. That is heroic what people sacrifice to help others. But we also should recognize the people who, in my opinion, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to fight for others and not hold a weapon.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was excited to tell those stories.
Well, and that's what's really interesting. We haven't mentioned yet Daniel Bruhl, who's really good in this film. Is, I guess, it's the villain, but it's a very complex character. It's not a stock Nazi character, and how she is able to use her cunning and her intelligence to sort of outsmart him actually is really brilliant. We're going to go turn it over to the audience in 1 second, but I would not be journalistically responsible if I didn't ask Niki a question about her next film, which is so awesome that you are
so awesome.
You are directing Mulan, the live-action version. And I know, it's just so cool because I think, I know that this it's sad to have to say this, but you are only, I think, the second or fourth female director to helm a $100 million budgeted film. Congratulations, though, on that. So,
I should be the 40th.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. What can you tell us about?
Secrets. Give it up, Niki.
I can't tell you anything. I wish I could. I'm a one movie girl. I'm not promiscuous at all, and
That's admirable.
Yeah, I'm going to usher this one gently and gracefully out the door on March the 31st, and then the very next day I start on Mulan.
Wow. Well, see, you're busy.
I am now. Yeah, thank you.
Who here has a question for these two?
Hi,
Yeah.
I have
Sorry.
a question. Hi, Niki. In your prior films, like, say, North Country and McFarland, you've taken important, truthful stories and characters and brought them to life on the screen. With The Zookeeper's Wife, in reading the book and the script, were there certain elements that were really important that you felt you wanted to get across in the film?
Yeah, I think I'm at my best as a filmmaker when I'm working on true stories or real people, real communities. This one was more challenging for me because it's historical, so I couldn't go. What I do when I went to Minnesota or the Central Valley is just go and be there and experience the way life is lived. It makes my job very easy as a director. But with this, the research was intense. The responsibility I felt and feel to honor so many people who died with this work by celebrating 300 who were saved and the extraordinary circumstances of the saving. It felt new to me and important, and yeah, I guess that's it. It's just to be authentic, whether the material is now or whether it was, in the 30s and 40s.
Hi guys, I love hearing you talk about women and strong women and powerful women. I mean, it seems to me this movie had to have been directed by a woman, surely, because just hearing you speak about it and the strength you bring to it, and it's from a woman's point of view. Were you like, you saw it and said, I have to do, what happened? I recognized that femininity and strength are not mutually exclusive. And I think that femininity has often been equated with weakness, but we know it's not. We know from our mothers and our sisters, our daughters, our friends, that female strength comes in all kinds of forms. And so I was thrilled to, firstly to partner with Jessica, who's all those things, and more brilliant. to put a hero up there and tell us a war story from a female point of view, because as we know, war didn't just happen to men. It also happened to women and children and animals, and this movie speaks for them.
Jessica, do you have any ambitions to direct eventually?
You should. You totally should.
I feel like...
You know, in the past I thought no, but working with people like Niki, it is inspiring to me. So if something comes to me that I feel is a story I want to tell, then yes. But before I would call Niki and say, hey, can I shadow you for a while? I'll be your assistant.
You'd be fantastic director.
She's starting work on the 31st.
No. You need an assistant for Mulan?
We have time for one more question.
Hi, Jessica. Sorry, I'm French, so sorry for my English.
No.
I just want to say you're beautiful and wonderful.
Thank
and
you.
I want to know if you own an animal. I mean, if you have an animal on your own, and if your attitude after the movie changed, like when you saw you. I don't know if you have a dog or a cat or. Yeah.
So I have a dog named Chaplin.
So, I mean, did you change your attitude with him after the movie, or you?
I mean, I've always been someone who thinks animals are sometimes superior to humans. And whenever I got him from the pound, and whenever people say, oh, you rescued him, I'm always like, he rescued me. You know, he's very special. And the beautiful thing about animals is, I know for me, whenever I'm having a tough day, that maybe people might not be so in tune with the energy of what that is. He is the first person. He's the first thing to be right next to me and like go, okay, let's make it better, and want me to pick him up. And there is this purity of love that you get from animals that's so open and gentle. I mean, so for you have one, so you understand. And Niki got one after the film, so she was really inspired.
He really was, and I love him. It's insane how much I love that dog.
Niki, actually, one last question too is, I'm curious if your identity as a New Zealander, which is one of the most beautiful it is the most beautiful country in the world, especially in terms of animals also. If that informs some of your choices, even on the set.
Yeah, New Zealanders are really pragmatic, and I certainly am. And we come from a very beautiful place, so I have a strong need to be in nature, and I certainly love and respect it. And I can't, there's almost nothing that's not really fascinating to me about Mother Nature or animal nature or human nature, and that informs all the movies. All of them.
All right. Well, listen, it opens on Friday, March 31st. And congratulations again for this remarkable film and a great story that's finally being told.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us, you guys.